as brown women, growing up, I always had such support from the women in my family. It was always very much a unit, and I think I just wanted and always expected that to be the same outside of my family. And I think sometimes there's a tendency, we don't tend to really talk about it too much, but I think all of us know that there's this unspoken, and it happens within all people of colour and races within their own communities, where there's almost a standoff between each other, and it breaks my heart a little bit. I feel like with everything that's going on, particularly right now, like our unity should just be standard. Like we should always have that unity as sisters, and so living as brown women in white worlds, it makes me sad sometimes to feel like you might not always feel accepted in the white world, but it should be a standard that we're always accepted in, at least in our own, and with a view to equality overall, you know. So that's why I wrote that poem.
So why do you think there are these standoffs? Like, it's 2020, like our diaspora's been through enough, right?
Yeah.
Why do you feel like there isn't this cohesion, or why do you think there are these standoffs still?
I genuinely don't know. I think growing up it was definitely more, and that can probably just be also put down to growing up and teenage stuff. But I feel like now it really doesn't have a place at all, and I feel that it's almost like a leftover of divide and conquer from colonialism, and that's kind of seeped in here. And for me, like, I have an aversion to it. I'm like, no, I'm going to tear that down. I want us to be friends and sisters no matter what. And that's what I hope this poem will bring about, maybe a space for that conversation and just realising that that doesn't need to be there anymore. I think I'm sometimes surprised when I go places and I still feel it. And I'm like, oh man, I thought we were past that. And I feel like we're getting there, but it's a little bit slow. Honestly, I feel like it's a massive part of Western society. I feel like the way we're taught that individualism is everything, and capitalism has a massive part to play in that. And I think that's accentuated here more than perhaps it might be if we were in India, for example. I don't know, but I feel it more, and that for me, I think, upsets me more than if it was something else. It's almost like that's crept into our unity. Like as a culture, South Asians are the most hospitable. We're so generous and loving, and our families are huge, and everybody's family. And for that not to translate in the diaspora, I feel like it is a leftover of colonialism for me, and also capitalism and everything that comes with that. And for a culture that is so good at community, it has no place. So I feel like we are. It's not necessary that we're that it's not there. It's not like the love's not there. But I feel it could be more. I feel like there's almost. It's like I express myself easier in poetry because I feel like I can use the imagery to explain it. It's almost like the climate of the cold has got in. And it's like, but we're sunshine souls, you know. Asia is sunshine. That is who we are. And when I'm in India, for example, I feel that so much more from people there as a day to day, and it's almost like that we've got frostier here, and we've lost maybe that innocence and carefreeness and silliness almost that I feel gets lost sometimes. Maybe that's a British thing, and maybe it's juggling our two identities. I feel like there's a part of ourselves that we're denying ourselves from, and that is just, it's natural to who we are. So as a way of something that what we might need to do, I think just being more open and just talking more about this stuff instead of it just being this big unspoken thing. Like, I've shared a poem with a few different people in my life from different walks of life, whether it's family, friends, colleagues, and they're like, yeah, nobody really says this, but we do all feel that standoff. And I tend to write poetry about stuff that needs to be talked about but is often tiptoed around. I believe we're the conversation generation, and I think there's a lot that we can solve through conversation, and this could be one of them.
Do you think the fear of backlash shackles people from being truly authentic?
Yeah, 100%.
And does that relate back to, what does that relate back to, do you think?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I felt nervous to even share this poem, and my rule is that you don't grow in your comfort zone, as the saying goes, and so I always push myself out there. If there's something that I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good poem, it makes sense to me, but I don't really want to share that in public, then I force myself to share it in public, and they're always the ones that go down well, because people can relate to them. So I have had that fear of backlash. I guess maybe because there might be people accusing you of stirring up negativity by even bringing it up. But on the other hand, I don't know where that has ever got anyone by just not bringing stuff up. It never leads to good things. And I think denial of it altogether isn't helping anyone to grow. So I can understand there's a fear of a backlash in some way, but really we'd all be holding the same fear, wouldn't we? So if it's just out there openly and we can talk about it, then there actually is nothing to fear.
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned in your poem, like opportunities wasted for having, you said women like me and women like you waste time on hatred, opportunities wasted. What do you kind of mean about like opportunities wasted?
So for me, anyone that isn't already my friend has the chance to be my friend. I'm still like my inner 4-year-old. So I think I was reflecting on times where I'd been places and I turned up and I was like, hey, and have just been given such a cold shoulder. It might be nothing to do, maybe they just didn't feel like speaking that day, but when you've felt those nuances before and you can kind of read situations, I feel like, wow, that's an opportunity wasted. Like it could have been something, maybe a friendship or something we could work together on, or I don't know. But I just feel we're here in this short space of time to live whatever it is we're meant to do in this life, and it makes no sense to me, particularly when we're up in it, that we would waste time on anything other than community and togetherness. For me, we're just all one. And I think growing up, having kind of an understanding that we were, there's so many things, this is the problem. Okay, so I think that things like caste, it doesn't have a place in India, but it definitely doesn't have a place in the diaspora. I've never understood why that's held on to as such an identity, particularly as a Sikh. The whole point of Sikhism was that it was for equality, and the caste system actually, it was in direct opposition to that. So growing up, I didn't even know what caste we were until I was about 13, and somebody at school was like, tell me your surname, I'll find out what caste you are. And I was like, what does that mean? And my friend held my arm and was like, don't worry, you'll be the same as me. And I was like, what is this? I remember coming home asking my mum and dad and being really confused when they knew what I was talking about. I just assumed they wouldn't know. And there's things like that is still happening. Interracial relationships, mixed marriages. I still think that's still, we're getting there, but it's still absurd to me that we live in a country that is 2% Asian or something crazy, and then expecting that you'll then find the right type of Asian within that 2%, whether it's the right religion or background or family or whatever. I think stuff like that just really doesn't, it never had a place, but it really doesn't have a place here, and especially not in the times that we're in. And also talking a lot more people now in the LGBTQ community, that I have so much respect for. Conversations are happening, but we are so far behind in being comfortable with that. And I for one, have had conversations around our kitchen table with my family. And my parents are, it's almost like it's okay for it to happen in anyone else's family, but if it's your own family, it would be an absolute meltdown. And we just need to be, I guess it's our generation that help them to understand. And I'm lucky, like my parents will sit and listen and get it. And some just shut down. But whilst that's there, whilst we can't force people to understand things, we can. So if there's things like that that are not progressive in our generation, then we've really got like, I was going to swear, we've got stuff to sort, and that it isn't okay. I think that's a massive one actually, and probably, I would say probably the biggest at the moment, in that it's just such an untouched topic, and I always like to bring up like Vedic literature and art and be like, look, you don't even know what gender people are, and then the fact that Victorian Britain made homosexuals illegal. So we're still allowing colonialism in everywhere. And that goes from everything to the standoffs with each other, because it's just a remnant left over of divide and conquer, to the attitudes that we have to the LGBTQ community. So I think that upsets me the most, these leftovers from colonialism, and actually fighting amongst ourselves when it wasn't us that started the fight in the first place.
So I guess in a way, looking at the idea that colonialism has in a way separated us, right?
Yeah.
So now is the time that we should really bring ourselves together.
Yes.
So what should we do? What can we do?
It's just not that hard. I think just being more open and more connected to that which makes us human. And I think in particular for a culture that is we're so connected to, I always say to people, in the West you talk about spirituality, but in the East it's just a way of life. You don't really call it spirituality. So the fact that Asian culture is, whether people believe or not, it's still a part of our culture very much, whatever religion you are or background you come from. So I think for a culture to be so immersed in that, and then to not practice togetherness, openness, oneness, community, just doesn't make sense. It's just going back to that and being, I guess, less influenced or less poisoned by what's happening now. Like in our recent elections, for example, there were campaigns that were specifically targeting Hindu families to say that, the Labour Party hate Hindus, and just inciting that kind of separation. That I find it shocking that it still works, and I almost feel like, don't we know better? Have we not learned from history? Have we not seen what our grandparents have gone through and our parents have gone through? Why are we letting those things play out? And I actually think our generation are not letting those things play out. We're in a funny position, because we've probably been given, or we've had the most freedom than previous generations before us, but we're still within those confines of what's acceptable for family and what isn't, and the community, and also for our own progression. And it's like this weird trapeze kind of act that we're doing. But we have massive potential for making that change. I really, and I can feel it in us. But none of that will really have a foundation if it isn't rooted in community. And why would we waste that? Why would we waste that? We're all brothers and sisters, and I think that's something I actually really am proud of. When I say that I'm South Asian, I'm proud of our ability to create community anywhere. And I hope that would be something we keep, particularly as we are, like I said, 1 to 2 generations down, and we're raising British Asian children now. Once our grandparents and parents aren't here anymore, there's no direct connection to India or Pakistan or Bangladesh. We are it, and that's a big responsibility to remember. And for me, that is rooted in community. In the next 10, yeah, I actually do. I think we're on our way. And that excites me. There's so much that I'm excited about, but I can see that if it's not rooted in community first, we might just fall flat. Like it makes sense to do everything in a togetherness way. And then, God, then we're really gonna fly. Because also the times that we're in, everywhere we look, equality is the biggest thing everywhere in every issue that we're talking about. So what we create in our own community will just have a ripple effect on the wider community and the world. And I genuinely believe that's what we're here in these times for. So yeah, I think in the next 10 to 20 years, gosh, that just even saying that gives me like a shiver of excitement for what's to come. It would just be such a shame if we lost community along the way.
I guess the final thing I wanted to ask is, what does it mean to be South Asian to you?
It means colour, it means family, it means food, it means dancing and dancing and dancing and dancing and dancing. It means music, it means togetherness, it means community. Like I have an image in my mind of a line of South Asian women, and everybody stood like this and a little bit stiff. And the poem being a way to be like, this is why we don't know why we're all stiff, but let's just acknowledge that we're all stiff. And at the end of the poem that we're all holding hands. That's what came to me, and then the poem came. And so it's literally like we let that stiffness go and we just hold hands and remember that we're all there alongside each other doing the same thing. Like we're all in these times together as women of the diaspora. Identity has always been a bit of a weird one. Why would we not use each other? Why would we not like hold our sisters and be like, oh yeah, let's do all this together? And our brothers. It's not to say, but I feel it less. There's more. The standoff happens more with whatever gender you are, although gender's not binary. But you know, so like maybe I don't know if you experience it as an Asian male, but with other Asian males, do you ever get a standoff?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's. But do you feel it less with Asian women?
I think I interpret it differently.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
Yeah, like with a standoff with Asian men, I see the elements of toxic masculinity.
Yes.
With Asian women, I see. I don't know how to describe it.
No, I don't either.
I don't feel that I have. Maybe I haven't acknowledged it, but like I don't sense more of a standoff as from a man to a woman.
Yeah, I don't.
But I think it's more pertinent if it's the same gender to the same gender.
Yes.
Because I think perhaps, I don't know what it is, but I feel like it is from man to man you see that, and obviously from woman to woman, but I haven't really encountered it fully in the same way I would with a guy. No,
nor have I. So that's why the poem's about my experience of women to women, and I imagine it's the same for Asian men to men. And I know from speaking to my friends from all different backgrounds, they have it from other diasporas. So Nigerians to Nigerians have it, and Jamaicans to Jamaicans have it. It's like a stand-up, and it's like, oh God, it's such a waste. That's the wasted time and opportunities wasted. It's like, move that stuff to the side. We're not in competition. We're in community.